Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm so happy to see you. My name is Leah Gilmore. I am the first service music director and also the Minister for Racial Justice and Multicultural Engagement here at Govans Presbyterian. You are right now in Govans Presbyterian Church. We are a church, a welcoming church. We are Christ centered, but we don't believe we have all the answers. And we're so blessed. Our pastor, Tom Harris, is with us today. We'll hear from him towards the end of the event. And we are just so blessed that you are here with us this afternoon, this beautiful afternoon. I see Kay and Annie have the sun shining in their room. And the sun is shining inside of this room because we have been joined by the incredible Professor Ron Williams, my friend, my pal. But he is just such a blessing to our community and to the world. And you just wait. You guys have on your seatbelts? I need you to wipe off all that fragility and get ready to listen to some stuff, okay? Here we go. I see you, Chris and Wendy. Hello, my friends. Hello. So I'm going to take the opportunity. Oh, and I'm sorry. We're also here with Lila Ali, one of our leading members and our Easter bunny here at Govans Presbyterian Church. Lila will be co-hosting with me later, and you'll hear more from Lila as she will be facilitating the question answer period. And we're also here with Maria Wong. We have something called our road dog. Maria's my ride or die. She's a road. She's always here to make sure that we are getting everything straight. And Maria will also be recording this for Govans Presbyterian and for perpetuity. So Ron, whatever
Hmm.
you say is here forever.
All
Okay.
right.
So let me take an opportunity to introduce this incredible man. Ron Kipling Williams uses art, media, performance, and education to break down walls, facilitate open and honest conversation, and build community. He has built a reputation for challenging and authentic work, tackling issues of race, class, and identity, and has influenced a generation of Baltimore regional artists and social change agents. I can say amen to that because you truly have. His awards include Baltimore City African American Unsung Hero, Maryland State's Arts Council Individual Artists, United Workers Human Rights Campaign, this is whom he's been recognized by, the National Society of Leadership and Success Excellence in Training, and Fulbright Scholarship Alternate. Wow, Ron. That's amazing. Ron is education manager at the Model Lyric, whose mission is to provide quality arts education programs for middle grades and high school students in the greater Baltimore region. Their programs focus on students writing original work, developing theater skills, and presenting their work on stage. They have presented their methodology at conferences including the Maryland Citizens for the Arts, Maryland Arts Summit, and Maryland Arts Lab. Two very, very amazing conferences. Congratulations on that. Ron has worked with numerous arts and community organizations, including the Baltimore Office of Promotion and Arts, City Lit Project, Maryland State's Arts Council, Arts Every Day, the Baltimore Algebra Project, Wide Angle Youth Media, and the Youth Resilience Institute. With Navasha, yeah. For several years, Ron has worked with the Ena Pratt Free Library conducting poetry and social justice workshops. For 9 years, he served as voiceover recording artist for the Maryland Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped. And you'll hear why he's a voiceover artist after you listen to this melodious voice. Ron holds an MFA from the University of Baltimore and serves as adjunct professor and faculty fellow at the Hoffberger Center for Professional Ethics. Ron serves on the steering committee for the Baltimore Arts Education Initiative, whose mission is to create sequential, comprehensive arts education programs in Baltimore City public schools. His article, Art is an Anti Violence Program, was published by the Baltimore Sun. Where's this? His one man shows include, now check this out. If the world were like Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, that's the one title. And today we'll hear Aware and Outrage, Dreadlocks, Rock and Roll, and Human Rights. Sounds like a great song, too. And How many orgasms does it take to stop dropping bombs? I'm sure we all want to hear that one. Okay, at least I do, because I'm like that. Okay. Ron is the creator of the CD Aware and Outraged, a poetic autobiographical book entitled Black Freak Mosh Heaven, Mosh Pit Stuff.
Yes.
His upcoming book, Ronology, the study of Ron, will be released in 2022. To learn more, we'll put his website on the screen. And so let us take the opportunity to welcome Professor Ron Kipling Williams to the house. Woo! Yay, Ron. You take it.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. It's such a pleasure being with you. Leah is a dear friend, and of course, is an incredible artist, incredible humanitarian. So it was such a pleasure when she called me to be in this. So I thank Govin's Presbyterian Church. I have familiarity with the history of Govins. I've done work with Govins in the past, so I have an idea of the kind of work that you all do. So it's a pleasure being here. Thank you, Maria, and thank you, Lila. Appreciate you all having me here. And you know what? I'm just going to go right into my introduction because I really appreciate Leah's reading my bio, but this is how I introduce myself. I am a complex, flawed human being with the capacity to do good things. This is how I define myself at this moment, the time of which I cannot control, but of my existence I can. I am endeavoring to release myself of all certainty about myself and the world, even though I have accumulated a wealth of opinions regarding both. I am well steeped in contradiction. I am grounded in moral and ethical principles and fall short many times upon their execution. I am an emotional, irrational human being, striving to observe myself through the world and of the lens of logic and reason. I believe I am right, yet I know I am deeply fallible. There is nothing that gives me credibility as an objective participant in this reality beyond those around me who say that I have. I have value, but I am unabsolute. I have grown to become more malleable, yet my conflict resides within my penchant for rigidity. I state my art with conviction, knowing it is subject to criticism that may change it at any time. I am dedicated to act in the mending of this world while aware of my unstitched wounds. I comprehend my agency while acknowledging at times the lack of confidence in it, which is tied to the outcomes of my life and those around me. I possess a lion's strength and a butterfly's fragility. I am everything that was and nothing that will be. I am firm in this finite body, yet nothing more than material subject to infinity. I am who I am, nothing and everything. So, I grew up in a nice house in a nice, predominantly Black middle class neighborhood in upper Northwest Washington, D.C. Everything was nice. My family was the Huxtables from the Cosby Show. You know the Cosby Show. Yeah, there was the three of us, Heathcliff, Claire, and Theo. And I was involved in all the typical middle class things, private and Catholic schools, summer camps, music lessons, art lessons, tutors, the whole nine yards. And of course, my parents dressed me in the preppy look. The collared shirts and the slacks and the penny loafers and the sweaters. I do not know what it is about sweaters. Parents always want you to wear a nice sweater. I hated those sweaters. They're snug, they itch, they make you hot, but it makes you look nice and respectable. My mother was the main proponent of these sweaters. Oh, Ron, you look so nice in that sweater. And if I did not wear the clothes she picked out, I would get the business. Oi, you look terrible, Ron. Why don't you dress nicely? The other kids at your school wear the nice sweaters. Why can't you dress like them? Oi. Yes, my mother said oi. She's Black and Native American and possesses all the guilt of a Jewish mother. See, she was born in Manhattan and grew up in Montclair, New Jersey. The first job she had as a teenager was managing an optical store run by a Jewish family. So, as you can imagine, she had a strong Jewish influence, especially in the guilt department. So I called her the Black Jewish mother from Manhattan. Here she goes. We always knew you were different. We always knew, Ron. We did everything we could: private school, after school tutors, music lessons, art lessons. We put you in camp. Nothing seemed to work, Ron. Oy. Growing up, the private school I attended was Jewish. My doctor was Jewish. My podiatrist was Jewish, who told my mother one day at the tender age of 8 years old, I was depressed and that I should see his son, who is a child psychologist and coincidentally has just opened up his practice and I would be his first patient. So I grew up listening to jazz, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, Charlie Mingus, the Thelonious Monk, Modern Jazz Quartet, and so on. And it was cool listening to jazz on Sundays with my nice sweater. And then there was go-go. From the Northwest to the Southeast, you would hear cars driving up and down the street blasting the baddest go-go bands: Trouble Funk, Experience Unlimited, Rare Essence, Air Raid, Junkyard Band, and the godfather of go-go, Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers. Go-go bands would play all night long. Everybody would be on the floor, sweat coming off the walls. Everybody was doing the happy feet and all the latest dances. And then I discovered Prince. He had that edge. He was wild and he broke all the rules. He played 27 instruments, produced, arranged, composed, and performed all his music. And he was the first man I had ever seen dressed in a pair of bikini briefs, a trench coat, and high heels. And he could dance in them well. I would listen to Prince for hours, dancing, posing, playing air guitar. I had his posters, magazines, records, t-shirts, buttons, everything. I wanted to be like Prince. I started wearing my hair over one eye like him, earrings, long coats, the gloves, except for the high heels. I could not pull that off. A lot of people, especially my parents, thought he was a freak. But to me, Prince was my hero. He came along right when I needed him, when I was feeling so depressed, feeling so out of place, and feeling like I did not fit anywhere. He said, forget everybody else and just be me. His music spoke to me, that I was fine just the way I was, that I didn't have to change for anybody. His music allowed me to escape from all the madness in school, at home, and in the neighborhood. I entered into his world and I could be whatever I wanted to be. So let me tell you about the night I turned rock and roll. I was 11 years old. One night I was in my bedroom listening to a major local hip hop and R&B station. I started getting bored and I was flipping the dial and I stopped when I heard this song on DC 101. It was My Sharona by the Knack. I don't know, y'all remember that song? My Sharona. Anyway, then right in the middle, I stopped. Hey, I'm not supposed to like this music. This is white music. Then I said to myself, I don't care. I love this music. So I kept on dancing. Fast forward to 2 years later, I was at the quintessential Black middle class house party. There was a sea of polo pullovers, slacks, penny loafers, designer jeans, sweaters with the shoulders exposed, and the smell of perfume and cologne wafting in the air. The speakers were pumping out the latest in hip hop and R&B. Everybody was doing the latest dance steps and doing the cool two steps. But then something happened. I began feeling something. I began dancing faster and faster and faster, and soon I was dancing twice as fast as the beat. People were shouting at me, slow down, slow down, but I couldn't. The girl in front of me got disgusted and walked away. Everybody was laughing and mocking me, but I didn't care. I knew what it was. It was the voice of rock and roll calling me. So I started listening to rock radio, classic rock, hard rock, and heavy metal. Then a friend turned me on to this music called New Wave. Susie and the Banshees, The Smiths, Depeche Mode, The Cure, Joy Division, Bauhaus, Sisters of Mercy, all these bands from England. No Black people I knew was listening to this music. They went as far as Kraftwerk and the Eurythmics, but that was it. My mind was exploding with this whole new world of rock and roll, and I wanted more. By the time I got into college, I was into industrial rock and roll music. Bands like Ministry, Front 242, Frontline Assembly, Skinny Puppy, Nitzareb, and Nine Inch Nails. And then there was punk. The Sex Pistols, Minor Threat, The Clash, Black Flag, The Dead Kennedys, and the greatest hardcore punk band of all time, Bad Brains. And that's what really blew my mind. There were Black guys doing rock? What? Bad Brains, Living Color, Fishbone, 24/7 Spies. These were guys that looked like me and were radical, breaking stereotypes, playing some great music. And for all of that, they were banned by Black radio. Even Jimi Hendrix, the greatest American guitarist of all time, was banned by Black radio. Then I learned that the pioneers of rock and roll were Black. Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Sister Rosetta Thorpe, Big Mama Thornton, Fats Domino. They took the blues and sped it up. Preachers all over the country was calling it devil's music. There was definitely a divide between Black folks who played gospel music and went to church, and Black folks who were getting down in the juke joints on blues and rock and roll. But after a while Black folks abandoned the wildness of rock and roll and stuck to the smoother rhythm and blues music, between that musical migration, racial segregation and discrimination, white record companies looking for white artists to promote this new music, the ensuing British invasion of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and others, rock and roll quickly became a white-dominated genre. And there I was, this sheltered middle-class kid, already influenced by Prince, now gravitating towards this postmodern white American and European brand of juke joint music. That was my conflict. I wanted to be in the scene, but I knew there was no way that a middle-class Black kid was supposed to be caught anywhere near those dirty, seedy, grungy, practically all white establishments. I told myself I was not rebelling against my family per se, but I had something deep within my soul that was burning to get out. I wanted to express myself, all my angst, my disaffection, my rage against the machine that told me that I had to be what they told me to be. It was like I was in the movie The Matrix, and I was playing Neo, the protagonist of the film. I could take the blue pill, play it safe, stay in the mainstream, and do what society wanted me to do. Or I could take the red pill and go down the rock and roll rabbit hole and see how far down it goes. I took the red pill and I never looked back. No more sweaters and slacks and shoes. It was black t-shirts, black pants, and black boots. My neighbors went from, "How you doing, Ron?" to, "What the heck, Ron?" No more going to top 40 clubs. No more standing around and looking stupid because no girl would dance with you and everybody looks at you like you're a loser if you dance by yourself. Or you accidentally stepped on a guy's shoes or looked at his girl for more than a second and he was threatening to kick your butt. I wanted to dance in front of the speakers or slam dance in the mosh pit. So I got into the DC rock and roll scene. 930 Club, DC Space, the Back Alley, Capitol Ballroom. And then there was Trax. Trax was the biggest gay nightclub in DC. It had 2 dance floors, 3 bars, a grill, a beach volleyball court, even a popcorn machine. Everybody hung out and partied there. You saw everything from business suits and evening gowns to punk rock gear and grunge. Everybody was accepted. No judgments, no hassles, and definitely no violence. I was there 4 nights a week, Thursday through Sunday, dancing my tail off. It was alternative rock and roll music on the smaller dance floor, but on the big dance floor, it was house music all night long. My parents lost their minds. It was bad enough I was doing this rock and roll thing, wearing all black and my hair all over the place. And now I was socializing at a gay nightclub. What will the community think? Black kids like me caught hell from everybody, not just our parents. We were too black to be white and too white to be black. Everywhere we went, we were mocked, cursed, spat on, harassed, bullied, and even assaulted. I was very lucky I was not beat up, but I had friends that were. But there were many situations where it was crystal clear that I was not welcome. At the same time, I was going to George Mason University in Virginia. I was trying really hard to get along, but I had to deal with a lot of these arrogant, privileged white guys on campus. Guys like that, they get really ignorant when they feel comfortable with you. And this is real. This is typically how they sounded. Dude, I think I could talk to you because you're cool for a black guy, you know? You're like black, but you're not like black, you know what I mean? Like you're like black, but you're not like one of them, you know? Like I don't see you hanging out with them like, you know, like all those hip hop guys, like you know, so I know you're cool, right? You know, you're cool, like, you know, like one of my best friends is black, you know? Huh? What? Do I think black people are inferior? I don't know, dude. I think you're getting better. But you know, dude, I think people complain too much. I mean, dude, get over slavery. I mean, that was like eons ago. I had nothing to do with that. I'm like saying, like, dude, you people have to stop making excuses and get off welfare. Like, oh, no, dude, I don't mean you. You know, like, I know your family has money. I'm just saying, you know what I mean, dude. Like black people in the ghetto. Like, dude, dude. When I look at you, like, I don't see color. Like you're like human, you know, like, dude, like can I share something with you? Promise you don't say anything to anybody, dude. Dude, a lot of these guys would love to date a black girl, but there's no way they could bring them around their family. Like they would totally cut them off. Totally. You understand, right? Like I couldn't like you couldn't bring home a poor black girl to your parents, right? Like they would totally freak out. Like it's like a class thing and like a race thing, like it's like a race and a class thing and like a family thing, like you know, like I don't know, dude, like it's weird. Like, you know, it's like my dad, you know, you're like, like my dad, like he told me like I could mess around with any chick I want, but if I brought anyone home but a white girl, like he would like totally like disown me, dude, you know? It's like, I don't know, dude, like I don't mean to be like cliche, but like, you know, like, can't we get along? Like it's like, you know, it's just like the way it is, man. Like, you know, we don't like it, but you know, dude, what are we gonna do about it? It's like how we were raised, you know. If you think I'm exaggerating, I am not. That really happened to me. Those guys actually talked to me that way. And after a while, I became aware and outraged. Now, let me back up for a minute. I was the good, all American, patriotic boy. I sang the national anthem and I saluted the flag. My parents instilled in me that America was founded on freedom and democracy and that America was the greatest country in the world. But when I turned 13, something happened. I realized I was being fed history that was full of half truths and stories that made no sense. How do you discover a people that were already there? And how do you take their land? How dare you kidnap people and force them to work for nothing? America was lying to me. I could I can no longer pledge allegiance to a country that was built on a lie. So on that day, I stopped pledging allegiance to the flag. When my parents found out, they were livid. My father asked me one day, "Do you love this country?" I told him, I love the people. He said, that's not what I meant. For them, it was another sign that I was rebelling against everything they stood for. But to me, a flag is nothing but a piece of material. The flag should never have more value than the people it represents. People don't fight and die for a flag. People fight and die for the people. When you place the value of the flag over the value of the people, you have turned the country into idolatry and turned patriotism into fundamentalism. And that is dangerous. So I got involved in the protest movements, marching and rallying against apartheid, war, poverty, mass incarceration, police brutality, and underfunding of schools. And again, I caught hell. I had my share of white counter protesters, red in the face with rage and shouting, you freak, get a job. Go back to Africa. You're here because you're a loser. People died for your freedom. Cut your hair, get a job, and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. We don't owe you nothing. You people are poor because you want to be. America, love it or leave it. USA, 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 USA. Then there was my own father. He was not going to tolerate having some militant child of his in his own household. Now, Ron, I don't know why you have to be out there with those radicals. Most of those people that you see out there protesting are white. They can afford to be radical. They can come into the mainstream anytime they want. You don't have that luxury. You are Black. You already leading this double life with your appearance and your lifestyle. You work for the government now. You don't want to jeopardize that. And you will if you get arrested. And you are not equipped for jail, young man. You have to make sacrifices. Otherwise, you will never have a future. Time to grow up and be an adult. There will be no revolution. It was my father's fears, his fear speaking to me, and it was understandable. He lived through segregation. He knew how tough it was to be a Black man in America. He had to endure the humiliation of using a colored water fountain and a colored bathroom, sitting on the back of the bus, being the last hired and the first fired on a job. He did not want to see me suffer through all that he suffered. He wanted what was best for me, but I wouldn't be silent. I felt it in my bones that in order for things to change, I would have to help make it so. My mother was afraid for me for different reasons. At the age of 4, she was abandoned by both of her parents. When I was old enough, my mother told me about my grandfather, that he was a prominent stage actor in New York in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and appeared in movies like Shaft's Big Score and The Learning Tree. One day I was going to the Kennedy Center with a good friend who was receiving a film award. The late great actor Ossie Davis would be there. My mother told me Mr. Davis knew my grandfather. After the awards, I approached Mr. Davis. I told him that my mother said he knew my grandfather. He asked me what I knew about him. Then he placed his hand on my arm and said, Tommy's dead. I felt lost, like another part of my history was gone. It was ironic that Thomas C. Anderson would have a grandson that would follow in his artistic footsteps. When I was a boy, my mother used to tell me to tuck in my lip, and pinch my nose so they wouldn't get too big. To her, the more European I looked, the better. She even wanted me to dress in that European look. See, even though her mother was Blackfoot Native American, Her skin color was light enough to pass for white. And during segregation, that was the difference between being a first-class citizen and a second-class citizen in America. And she could not afford to look like she had one drop of colored blood in her. So she abandoned my mother, adopted her niece, who could also pass for white, as her daughter, and lived as a white woman. Mr. and Mrs. Stevens adopted her, claimed her as their niece. They lived in Montclair, New Jersey, on Elm Street. When they retired, they moved to Riviera Beach, Florida. Mrs. Stevens was from Jamaica. She was light-skinned and came from a wealthy family. She always complained about the dark-skinned family across the street. Ironically, her husband was a dark-skinned Black man from the Virgin Islands. His family was also wealthy, so I guess that gave him a pass. There is a rampant social disease in the Black community known as colorism. It has been around since slavery. The escalating resentment between light-skinned slaves, the product of a plantation master raping enslaved women who served in the plantation house, and the dark-skinned slaves who worked in the fields. My father told me about the paper bag test. It was a test that was given to Blacks by other Blacks. See, during segregation, there were certain house parties where people would place paper bags next to their doors. If you were the skin tone of a paper bag or lighter, you could get into the party. If not, you didn't. They turned you away. Colorism still exists in the 21st century. Insults boomeranging in predominantly Black neighborhoods among youth and adults. You can tell by the generation, by the slang terms they use: light, bright, and almost white, red bone, high yellow, darky, tar baby, midnight. This kind of toxic behavior crosses socioeconomic lines. The middle-class social circle in which I traveled was no exception. The light-skinned girls were the prize. The brown-skinned ones were cool, but the dark ones, ridicule and laughter were their reception. No one of the right complexion would dare darken their doorsteps, let alone be seen with them in public. The baggage that my parents had to carry must have been overwhelming. It's called broken legacy. I feel like a tourist whenever people elaborate on their family tree. And when I hear about family reunions, I'm a nomad in the land of clans. I have Blackfoot, Seneca, and Cherokee in my family. Most are dead. Some disavowed their heritage to pass for white or Black. My paternal great-grandfather passed for Black. He worked as a Pullman porter on the railroad. My maternal grandmother passed for white, so she lives like a white woman. These are all the stories I have. I was never taken to a reservation. I was never told my people's history. I have no artifacts or trinkets. I have nothing to pass on. My family's branches are broken. The trunk fallen and split and the roots are overgrown. I learned to bury my pain and move on. I live as an American Black with all the rights my African ancestors fought and died for. I have no idea who they are. No stories, no artifacts, no records, nothing. I feel like a tourist whenever people elaborate on their family tree. And when I hear about family reunions, I am a nomad in the land of clans. So I moved up to Baltimore. Charm City, the home of marble steps, crab cakes, Old Bay, Natty Bowl, the Yellow Bowl, Odell's, the Hippo, Paradox, Billie Holiday, Baltimore Club, and Baltimore East. It's Baltimore, hun. You can only understand this if you have lived in Baltimore. Baltimore is like a magnet. It can suck you in and keep you there. In fact, there are so many people I know who left and came back. It is dysfunctional and lovable at the same time. And it is so true. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere because no one loves you harder and gives you more crap than Baltimore. My mother couldn't believe it. You want to move to Baltimore, Ron? What's in Baltimore? There's nothing there. Why don't you move to New York? They have everything there. That's the place you want to be if you want to be an artist. My God, Ron. I don't know what you're doing. You have no plan. Oi. It was that time when my journey into dreadlocks began. Now, let me take it back for a minute. When I was in high school, the black guys would go to the barber shop and would either have their hair done in waves or get their hair straightened. And then they would use a stocking cap to keep their hair laid down. Now, in order to straighten your hair, you would have to get a perm, or as they would say, get your hair fried. You see, perms used to be made with sodium hydroxide or lye, and lye would burn the heck out of you, especially your scalp. There's a lot of stories about black men who got burned with some lye after they put their hands on their wives or girlfriends or cheated on them. But I digress. So the barber sits you in their chair and begins applying that lye relaxer. And at first it feels cool, but after a while, it starts heating up. And by the time the barber gets you to your kitchen, which is the back of your head, your whole scalp, that's what they call it, the kitchen. Your whole scalp feels like it's on fire and you are squirming around and pleading with the barber to get it off right now. And the barber says, hold on, I'm almost done. And you cannot get to that sink fast enough to get that lye off your head. I'll never forget the last day I got my hair fried. Oof. They burnt my scalp so bad, it felt like I had crusty worms all over my scalp. Fried, crusty worms. And they hurt. I said to myself, enough is enough. I will fry my hair no more. I am going natural. So here I am in Baltimore, and it's been a few years with my natural hair. One day I stared myself in the mirror for a long time. My hair was getting wild and unruly, if you will. I felt like I was at a crossroads. I was either going to lock it or cut it, which at that time was a huge decision. See, I wanted to become an actor, but I knew I could not get work in Hollywood with dreadlocks. If the part calls for it, you could wear fake ones. Otherwise, you were clean cut and clean shaven. The question was my desire to be an actor strong enough to make such a sacrifice for Hollywood? Hollywood. Frankly, I love the movies, but I was not that hungry for that life. Furthermore, I was not going to spend the rest of my life wondering what it would be like to wear dreadlocks. I was not going to go to my grave regretting that I didn't. It was like everybody else's voice in my head, my parents, Hollywood, society. What about mine? What about me? I wanted to live life on my own terms. I decided that day, whatever is meant to be for me to have, I will have. That was my answer. It was ironic. I had to lock my hair in order to feel free. I'll never forget the day I showed up to my parents' house with my dreadlocks. So it was like a dark cloud formed in their living room. My father said, "You should have told us in advance that you change your hair, Ron." And my mother said, "How are we going to have a relationship with you with your hair like that?" As my locks grew down my back, my mother would hug the front part of me so she would not have to touch them. My father would wrap his arms around me as if he were giving me a reverse Heimlich maneuver so he wouldn't have to touch them either. Believable. People with dreadlocks have faced an incredible amount of prejudice and discrimination. We have been characterized as being dirty, immoral, even criminal. There have been cases of Black students who were given detention suspension, and expulsion because of their hair. Andrew Johnson, a Black teenager, was forced to have his dreadlocks cut by a white referee in order for him to continue participating in his New Jersey high school's wrestling match. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in the 2017 case of Catastrophe Management Solutions upheld that banning dreadlocks in the workplace does not constitute intentional race-based discrimination. And even though 3 states have passed the Crown Act, which stands for Create a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair, there is still a long way to go to not just legally, but morally turn the tide in a society that objectifies and discriminates against people just because of the way they look. My parents loved me the best way they could. They sure did. But at the end of the day, parents are people. And most people suffer from the NIMBYs, not in my backyard. That means it's okay for others to do what they want over there, but not in our house. Whether it is the way someone looks, their color, their culture, their class, or who they love, we will tolerate it over there. But it better not darken our doorsteps. But there is an old saying, what you hate will end up in your house. That's right. Karma makes house calls. You know, a lot of people talk about tolerance, and that sounds good and nice and politically correct. But to me, tolerance is the arrogance of the ignorant. To me, it means that I am better than you, but I will tolerate you. My status, my class, my religion, my color is superior, but I will allow you to be in my space. To me, there is nothing more ignorant than that. Acceptance, that's the key. Acceptance is the acknowledgement that we are equal as human beings and that I accept you for who you are. Do you know how many times I have been told I look like a menace? Do you know how many Black guys round their shoulders and soften their voices just so that white people will feel comfortable around them? I cannot tell you how many times I have rolled out my resume just so white people can see that I am non-threatening. I shouldn't have to do that. I should be received without judgment or prejudice. But I see that look on their faces, that look like I'm the other, like I'm going to do something to them. And you wonder why there is such a thing as the angry Black man? Walk in my shoes for a day and see how I feel. How can people love a God they cannot see and hate everyone they can see? How can they look at me and not see the God within me? How can they look at me and not see their brother? How can they look at me in the face and tell me I must wait to get the justice, equality, and fairness that I deserve while they enjoy the fruits that this society has to offer? I didn't break this country. Neither did any of the people that live here who are descendants of African, Native American, Latino, and Asian heritage, so don't ask us to fix it. Yes, we have become the consciousness of this nation, but it is not our job to right the wrongs. We have been having this conversation for generations, and we are tired. We are exhausted. Many of us do not have the bandwidth to continue it. We have been shouting over and over again that we are humans just like everybody else. But America won't listen. When we say Black Lives Matter, America says all lives matter. When we kneel before the national anthem to address our grievances, America burns our jerseys and calls us unpatriotic, even though we have fought for this country since we were enslaved. There is no race of people more loyal than Black people. But still, there is no acceptable form of protest where we are heard. America simply wants us to be silent as we suffer. I was that innocent Huxtable kid living the dream. Yeah. Riding my bike through the park, running to the creek and catching salamanders and skipping rocks, the sun beaming on my face as I laid on the grass and watched the clouds move. Tragically, those days were not meant to last. Like all Black children when they turn teenagers, I found out who America really is and the rules on how to navigate through it. Dreams turn into nightmares when the masses sit idly by and do nothing. Even one of the biggest dreamers of us all was killed on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. It is time for America to stop being a dream killer and start being a dream catcher. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Thank you so much. I am. This is rare. This is rare. So you guys wait for. I am speechless. Seriously, I just thank you so much for your honesty, for the articulation of why the anger is there, which is which is rooted in pain and frustration. I thank you for saying the words that so many of us have said and so many of us will say in the future. But I thank you for understanding and inspiring and understanding that we don't that isn't really articulated. You know, you so well said what we experience daily. And for so many of us middle class kids that went to Catholic schools, we were not shielded. We were not shielded from the realities of who we are here in this country and around the world. I just am grateful. I'm grateful. Acceptance, not tolerance. The teacher, and I hope everyone hears that. Everyone under the sound of my voice right now, Ron said acceptance, not tolerance. I've always had an issue with the teach tolerance. We don't want to be tolerated. We want to be accepted as your fellow human beings. And I'm grateful for everyone on this line. I see my husband. I just want to give him a shout out. Hello. Hello, Pastor Gilmore. I just want to say, hey, he's in his office trying to hide. Okay. Hoping I don't call on him. So I just want to say thank you, everyone, for attending. I'm going to turn this over to Lila. We would like you have the opportunity right now to ask this incredible thought leader questions. Um, Regarding what he shared with us or questions you may have about his beautiful hair. It is called dreadlocks. Okay. You're not even showing it, Ron. You're not even showing those
Okay,
dreadlocks.
here we go.
There you go.
And let's see. I don't even know if it's going to be all in the screen because it's
Uh,
actually, yeah, I can't.
It's all good. Those
It's
dreadlocks.
all the way down my back.
Yeah. They tell a story. I've always deeply admired that. You know, our hair tells our story, tells a big story. So please ask questions. Um, Lila, I'm going to turn it over to you, young lady.
Thank you so much, Ron. I still want to call you Mr. Williams. I'm getting
But you
used
can't,
to.
Lila. You can't. And you can't call me Miss Leah.
That's
Okay.
right. No, Lila, no.
So yeah, please, if you have questions for Ron or comments or anything you'd like to say, please put it in the chat. I'm just gonna try to start off with some things that Ron said while he was speaking to us that really resonated with me. And I hope that you guys will build on that, piggyback on it, or come up with something totally unrelated to what I have to say and get this conversation started. I hear you and believe you when you say that tolerance is the arrogance of the ignorant. How, at some point though, aren't there always some people or some things that we tolerate and not and don't accept? I'm thinking particularly of Cardi B. You know about Cardi B?
I'm not really familiar enough. I mean, I've heard things and I haven't watched her videos, so I don't know enough about her to comment on her.
Okay, so we'll say Miss Ratchet. Okay, kind of behavior. Miss Ratchet. That's what the millennials say, ratchet. Okay, for this kind of behavior. But anyway, she started out as a on Instagram, and she's married to one of the more famous rappers, and actually she's divorced now, but she is definitely one who is into sex sells and quote ghetto behavior sells. And I'm keeping in mind, I listened to your Aware and Outraged, and I know that you had a piece on there about being ghetto and what if Harriet Tubman was ghetto. But back to what I was saying about the tolerance, I don't want that in my home. I don't want my young girls seeing that sex sells. I don't want my young girls to think that that is what you need to do to be feminine. I don't want to censor Cardi B. I believe she has the right to express herself the way that she needs to. But I tolerate that because I don't believe in censorship, but I don't want it in my home. So where is the line when we say we don't want tolerance, we want acceptance? Well, I don't accept that.
Well, let's differentiate between people's behavior and who they are. So what I was talking about was just people who they are, just solely on the basis of their race, their culture, their class, their sexual orientation, so forth. That accepting people who they are on face value, accepting people who they are in their human value, and not to just tolerate them. So I will address that other part, and I think that we are very hypocritical as Americans and as civilizations in the way we address women to begin with. I mean, we're living within very patriarchal systems that objectify women. And we don't teach our girls about their own power. And we target our girls to become objects in society. So in one sense, what Cardi B does in terms of claiming her sexual power is an outgrowth of not being validated as a human, as a girl of her own right in the home, in the neighborhood, in society, that women are still undervalued. Women are still objectified. And so some of this, what happens is the outgrowth of that is that I am being hypersexualized by others. I might as well do it myself. I might as well take my own power back and do it myself rather than other people doing it to me. That I will claim some of that commerce and some of that profit of my hypersexualization while other people are doing it to me. So your point is well taken in terms of, trying to control what is being shown in your house because you don't want any negative or outside influences. But on the other side, there is that outgrowth of what this society has done to women and girls and some ways in which that empowerment tries to counteract that, if that makes sense.
It does. No, thank you. There's a distinguish between behavior and who a person is. So you can accept a person, but not necessarily the behavior. Or and also I understand what you're saying about taking power back. That makes a lot of sense. From our chat, we have a question about colorism that you spoke about. How is colorism being addressed in the African American community? Is there dialogue that you?
Yeah, well, so there's some dialogue, and then there's not enough. It's something that is not talked about enough in Black communities. It's something that still goes on today, unfortunately. And I think we had a conversation earlier. It's part of that dirty laundry that is within our community that we don't want to talk about because it's just something you didn't do. You keep everything secret. You keep everything within the house. You keep everything in the closet. So no, there are some conversations that they're being had, but they're on the margins. It's not part of an overall strategic conversation that Black people need to have in order to deal with this and heal from it and to eradicate it. And just to paraphrase James Baldwin, you cannot fix what you will not face. And we are still not facing that on a mass level.
So, Ron, let me interject because I think you're so right. And we have actually faced it on a micro level here at Govins. Our very first racial justice speaker series, the topic was colorism. And we presented a book by Baltimore author Petula um, Clark. No, that's a singer, right? I'm losing it.
Petula Caesar?
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Oh, yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
She's a Facebook friend. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it, but just to everyone who's listening, welcome to my brain. Just to everyone who's listening, we still have copies of that book. And Uda addressed that question. And Uda, you could pick up Petula Caesar's book from the Govins office, and it's called "She's Such a Bright Girl." And we delved deep into, and we had a great conversation about colorism. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
You can
Thank you.
also put up Lila is checking out the chat and also the raised hands. So how you raise your hand is on the bottom. You'll see something called reactions, and in that section you have the option of raising your hand. All right, thank you. I think Keith's question is next, Lila.
Yes. When we're talking about colorism and appearance and the way people are discriminated against, can you enlighten us about the origin of dreadlocks? History and culture of dreadlocks.
I am not a historian. I know a little bit about that. Some say it goes back to biblical times of the Nazarites who locked their hair. Others say it goes back to the 5th century in Africa, and I forget where in Africa. And then, of course, later on in the Rastafarian culture in Jamaica. So it's an ancient history of locking.
Can I jump in for a second? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, first of all, hey Ron, how you, man? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Wait a minute, I can't
Keith
see who.
Snipes. It's Keith Snipes.
Keith Snipes, my man. Hey, there you are.
How you doing?
Oh, my man, 20 grand. I tell you, it's great seeing you. Great seeing you.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clear up my question. What I was primarily concerned with is the use of the word dread as affixed to the word lock. There has been lots of controversy around that.
Okay.
Because the word dread has been expressed as dreadful or scary, which I think lends itself to some of the stereotypical perceptions about the donning of dreads. So
Yeah.
that's what I was wanted you to speak to. But
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
I jumped in, but good to see you, man. If
Oh,
you'll,
great to see you. And it's and I've been following some of your stuff on Facebook, and and folks that don't know about you, just need to learn about how much of a brilliant artist
oh,
in
man,
your own right.
there's a lot coming from you, but I'll get off.
Keith
Thank you.
is, you never know who you're going to meet here at Ron. You just never know. It goes in
Yeah.
everywhere. Keith is a member of our racial justice working group and one of our leaders, and also a part
Mm,
of our cast book club discussion. So he is deeply embedded in our culture right now.
excellent.
Okay.
Keith, and just to mention briefly, Keith did a piece called Cotton Caskets at the Charm City Fringe. This was 2 years ago. Brilliant piece. And I hope that you all give him the space to do that piece at the church.
All right. You heard it.
It's a must see. It is a must see. Um, so yeah, I mean, typically it has been used in a pejorative, and normally I say locks, but sometimes I will use dreadlocks to confront people in their own stereotyping, to say that, oh, you call these dreadlocks, well, let's confront it head on to what you think your perception of it really is. And here I am in front of you with them. Now let's deal with it. So yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I have another question about you talked about how you were influenced by Prince.
Yes.
And Prince allowed you or made you feel like you could be yourself. And who else influenced you in your art?
In my
And
art.
let me see, let me
Okay.
find the exact words. I'd love to hear about how that's shaped. You're beautiful. You beautifully explained how music, especially Prince's, gave you permission to be
Yeah.
yourself and not care. I'd love to hear about how that shaped who you are as a writer, artist, and activist.
Hmm. Wow. That's like a book. And I'm so glad for these questions, because oftentimes I'm talking about the issues and I don't talk enough about myself. And so this work is important. I um, I think what one of the things that he did was that he liberated the idea that I had to censor myself to be heard,
Mm.
that I had to censor my voice in order to be accepted by the larger society. And had I gone down that road to try to ensure that I was validated um, as a writer, as an artist, I would not have done the work that I'm doing now. So I would have been more concerned about what do I need to do to have a mass audience, and not do this kind of challenging work, not to do the kind of challenging questions, not to have the challenging kinds of conversations that we need to have. Of course, everybody would like to have fame and fortune, but I felt like really, to me, my consciousness and my voice is most important to me. So that's what he allowed. That's what he showed me, um, and that you can be heard and be yourself at the same time. Other influences have been Gil Scott Heron, Miguel Pinheiro, Allen Ginsberg. And since I'm a rock and roll head, you may not be familiar at all with Killing Joke. The lead singer is Jazz Coleman. He's definitely been an influence. The idea of being your own artist and charting your own path. I just think it's important for everyone to speak their own truth and authenticity. I used to have a lot of young people open up for my shows, not a lot, but a number of them. And invariably they would ask me, well, what do you want me to perform? And I'd say to them, like, look, you have 15 minutes, the floor is yours. You speak, however, you perform whatever you want to perform. You're not my protege. Even though you're opening up for me and I'm in some sense being a coach, this is your work. This is your truth. You speak it. You do your thing. And they were able to get other work as a result on their own. So really, yeah, that, you know, the artists that influenced me are the ones that said, hey, be true to you, do your thing. Don't worry about the rest. You know, matter of fact, one of our local heroes, Lafayette Gilchrist, told me the same thing. You know, he said, man, just do your thing and the audience will come. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. I have, and I know we're coming to the end of our time together, but I have one question from Kay. I'm gonna ask to unmute her. Kay, did you have a question? I'm gonna try to, I see your hand raised.
Hi, Kay.
Hey, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm here. I was trying to type as I I saw that you had asked me, but you know, I wanted to I heard you reference Jamaica, and I was born in Jamaica. I understand, you know, colorism, and I'm not really sure if we touched a little bit on the origin of it and why it is and how it's changing. For me, you know, growing up there, I was surrounded by people who looked like me. And it, you know, so I was very comfortable in my skin being a darker complexion person. And I was from what's known in Jamaica, you have different parishes. I was from more like the country part. So you had a lot of people who are darker complexion. As you move towards, you know, somewhere like Kingston, where you have a mixture of, you know, darker complexion, lighter complexion, a lot of Chinese, a lot of Scottish, a lot of different cultures. Then you got into colorism, where they would put the lighter complexion people in the front of the stores because they were more acceptable, and the darker complexion would have to work in the back because they were less acceptable. For me, I did not face racism or colorism or whatever until I came to this country. And I was told that I was too dark, which I didn't understand because, you know, I love my skin. I would never change it for anything. And I, you know, I absolutely adore the shade that God made me. But what I notice now, I see a little bit of a change. The more we see in the media of what, you know, the image of what is beautiful and what is acceptable as being beautiful, I see a change now where darker complexion Black women are more acceptable to what's, or taken as whatever, you know, beauty is, defined as what beauty is. You can look at a darker person and say, you know, that's actually a beautiful person. In my own family, we're the color of the rainbow. I'm probably the darkest complexion person in my family that my mom married into, which was a very light complexion family. And I honestly didn't realize there was a difference because I grew up in a totally different culture until I became maybe like going into my college years, and then started to notice because everyone else was pointing out that there was a difference. So, you know, for me, I think it's changing a lot the more you see differences in the media, representation of darker complexion people. So anyway, that was my kind of my rambling thought.
No,
So,
thank you,
thank
Kay.
you, Kay.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And that's true. Changes have been made. You see more prominent dark-skinned women, like, of course, you know, Viola Davis is Lupita. You see journalists like Joy Reid and others. So you're seeing that change. What is, to me, is not happening quickly enough within Black communities. We're still perpetrating it on each other. And it seems like the outside, we have to catch up to the outside. It's a weird thing that is happening. So even there's more acceptance in media, there's still not enough acceptance in communities. And this is not, and I'm glad that Kay brought that up, you know, in Jamaica, because, you know, globally, that's still an issue. In India, I was watching videos of women who are using bleaching cream to make themselves lighter. They're called, in India, women who are darker, they're called dusky, if you can imagine. And so there's been a lot of talk now about how devastating and dangerous it has been for women who have been engaging in that practice, trying to look more acceptable. And of course, you know, the in terms of the danger, the health effects of bleaching your skin to make it look lighter. So thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Thank you, especially for the origin of colorism. We are out of time, but Ron, I really like you speak because it really is a result still of white supremacy.
Hmm.
Colorism is a result of our foundational relationship with
Yeah,
race. It's
you
that.
know, and I want to I'm going to parallel this
Hmm.
with something else to demonstrate how pervasive and deep it gets. So colorism, how it has been perpetrated in this country, is similar to how female genital mutilation happened in Africa,
Mm.
where it began as a white construct here. Black people began to adopt colorism as their own practice. So where white plantation owners said, I'm going to treat light-skinned slaves better and keep them in the house, and I'm going to treat the dark-skinned slaves worse. Then through and Naim Akbar talks about psychological slavery. So the psychology of now black people are going to continue the practice that the master, the white master, started. So now the white master no longer has to do this type of practice. Black people will do it on their own.
Mhm.
Similar to what happened in Africa, where the black patriarchs would engage in the practice of female genital mutilation. They will perpetrate it on girls. We're
Mhm.
not talking about women, girls,
Mhm.
as early as 9 years old.
6.
Six,
Mhm.
my God, six.
Unbelievable.
But then the patriarchy no longer had to do that because the women took that practice over. And then women were perpetrating that on girls. So that is the devastating and horrific and egregious effect of a system that is created, and then the people that are oppressed turn around and oppress each other.
Right.
That has happened in my family, and I gave that
Pedagogy of the press.
illustration. It's that, my own mother was abandoned because her mother, who could pass for a white woman, decided, I'm going to live as a white woman, and since my daughter can't pass for a white woman, I'm going to leave her because I need to live well. You see.
My Lord. My Lord,
Yeah.
there's a wonderful book called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed that really
Mm.
explains this. When the oppressed get the opportunity to become the oppressors, often the oppression is even worse.
Yeah.
It's doubled down on. So, Ron, just
Thank you.
thank you for sharing. Thank you for your wisdom. I want to
Thank you.
give before we completely say goodbye and everybody, and I can give you virtual hugs and all that. Almost time. It's almost time for real hugs, you guys. We're keeping the
Yes.
prayers going. Almost time. I just
I'm
want
a
to
big
give
hugger. I want
me
hugs.
too. Well, we are. That's what we do.
Yes.
That's what we do. So I want to give an opportunity for our pastor to just give a few words of reflection. He doesn't speak long, so we're blessed. So just give.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you so much, Ron, for sharing with us today and for answering the questions. Amazing presentation. I
Thank you.
love getting to hear you and getting to know you. Just, if you love this kind of work, racial justice work, I think most people on this call are in some kind of faith community. Most of them are from Govans. Um, Doing this work in the context of faith has another level. And so,
Yeah.
both in the inspiration it provides us and the call to be self-critical that it provides us. So if you're interested in connecting with Govans Presbyterian for this work, I put the visitor form in the chat. Please fill it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Or email me.
Or email Leah.
You're very welcome to email me. But like Pastor Tom said, this is Christ's work. We thank all of you for joining. I see some of our Music Monday participants and artists. Thank you for coming. Thank you. I would like to call out all your names, but we really have run out of time. I just am so appreciative for your time. And just know that this speaker series we are doing 4 times a year. We have one coming up in May, and maybe it's 5 times a year, I don't know, but we're doing it regularly, consistently, and with passion. All right. Our next one coming up is in May, and it's Sharita Cole Brown. Sharita is going to be talking about mental health in the African American community and access. It's a justice issue and access to mental health. Ron, You know you're my brother. I thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I
Thank
thank
you, my
you.
sister.
And
Yes.
congratulations for all of the incredible work you're doing. I'll see
Thank you.
you. I'll actually attend a meeting of the Lyric Educational Group the next time
Yes.
we have.
And please come by my class. We would love to
I will.
have you.
I will definitely come by your class. And I am so grateful. Uda, Patricia, Tyrone. Tyrone's my husband. His name is David, but I call him Tyrone. Okay. You can do that too. You don't try to figure it out, y'all.
Yes.
Don't try to figure it out. So thank you,
Yes.
Stephen and Catherine and Billy, Pastor Billy, who is our associate pastor, Bobby and Paul. Hi, Paul Hulleberg. And Tiffany, my girl Tiffany James. I'm so glad to see you here. And Kay and Annie and Jenny. I'm calling names anyway because I want to. All right. And everybody. Linda Needham and Lisa Beecham and Cordelia and Cynthia. Hey, Cynthia and Jane. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We will see you in May with this series. And Keith, we have to talk about, you presenting this. You may be September, okay? All right.
Yes, I want to
All
be
right.
there.
All right, sweetie.